It's John Beaudin, Rock History Book. Earlier today, we came on and talked about sort of a sad thing that happened on December 8th in 1980. We know the date. A lot of people think of 1980, December 8th, and think of John Lennon's passing. But it was also the date in 1976 that the Eagles released Hotel California, the album. And today we celebrate. We've got a few special guests on this show. We've done some interviews. Jack Temchin, who was Glenn Frey's songwriting partner. Bernie Leadon, who quit the band before Hotel California, but we did ask him what he thought Hotel California would sound like if he was still in the band. So you hear from Bernie Leadon. Randy Meisner talks about the condition he was in when he left the Eagles and the drama that was surrounding them. Hi, Melody. Melody, you never let me down. Thank you. Thanks for being on. And did I mention Alan Frey, who's Glenn's brother, Jack Temchin, who's Glenn Frey's songwriting partner, Bernie Leadon, Randy Meisner. They're all going to be, and I know Bernie Leadon's not on Hotel California. And I had an interview with Henry Diltz, the photographer for the first two albums, and he talks about the band members, but we don't. I forgot to put it on, and now it's too late because we're rocking and rolling. It was like 60 seconds before we were coming on. We also have 10 facts you may not know about Hotel California at the end of this clip, which is a big produced thing that we've released before. But it's a big day for music. How's it going? A Talkin' Badger. I'm doing well. It's always fun to talk about the Eagles. The channel always does well when we talk about the Eagles. They're one of our top bands. And Hotel California, A New Kid in Town, Life in the Fast Lane, Wasted Time, the reprise on the other side, Victim of Love, Pretty Maids All in a Row, Try to Love Again, and The Last Resort. We're going to start with some clips. Have you seen the Hotel California anniversary tour? They're doing amazing shows. I was invited by Alan Frey, Glenn's brother, to go to Vegas just before COVID struck. I think those shows were canceled. I'm pretty sure. Even at friends and family pricing, it was still quite expensive. It was a little too expensive for us. Hotel California is my fave song, Melody R says. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of things Hotel California in this clip. So we're going to start. What should we start? We've got so many clips. Hold on. Let me see. Remember, at the end, we're going to have 10 facts you may not know about Hotel California. We start with the Glenn Frey's brother on the hoopla around Hotel California. I asked Alan Frey if he remembered the day in late 1976 when Hotel California was first released.
Yes, absolutely. But I had no idea it was going to get that big. Thought it was another Eagles album. I thought one of these nights was about going to top, after the Thrill Is Gone on one of these nights. I thought that was going to top everything. And when Hotel California came out and they promoted a big stadium tour, and it just took off and went, bonkers.
Yeah, I was like you, because when I heard one of these nights, my thought originally was, wow, this is a lot better than the last album, On the Border, and I don't think they can even top this ever.
One of these nights was pretty chart topper. I thought that was just a killer album. But, they were fighting against some stiff company. Elton John was big, Led Zeppelin was big, Wings were big, Fleetwood Mac was up there. David Bowie was up there. So basically, those other bands were their arch enemies. Not that they didn't like them, but they were competing against them for number one. So they didn't have a heck of a lot of good stuff to say about other bands, just for the simple fact it wasn't a personality thing. But I don't think they made any enemies out of it. It was just, it's the battle of the bands kind of thing,
That's Alan Frey, Glenn Frey's brother. And I've been in contact with Alan quite a bit since Glenn passed away. We're going to talk about the relationship they had in just a second. Just a reminder, at the end of this clip, we're going to have 10 facts you might not know about Hotel California. We're going to play it for you. It's we refreshed it from last year. Also, Randy Meisner is on our show tonight. He's going to talk about what it was like during Hotel California and his condition when he left the band. It's an interesting clip. There's 3 clips from Randy. Bernie Leadon, who was not on Hotel California, but, I did ask him what it would sound like if he was still in the band. You just heard Alan Frey, and Jack Temchin is on here. He's Glenn Frey's songwriting partner. And let's go back in. And I'm going to read your comments in a second. This is Bernie Leadon what Hotel California would have sounded like, just maybe if he was still in the band?
Well, I don't know if it would have been different, but because I left and Walsh came in. But see, honestly, I never really listened to Hotel California, the album, because, I wasn't there anymore. I couldn't avoid hearing the hits. But I'd never heard Pretty Maids in a Row until the History Of tour, and it opened the second half of the show after the intermission. And I was like, wow, there was a great video for that concert, and I was like, wow, that's a great song, Pretty Maids All in a Row. And so, I mean, it's a nice little question, but the truth is I moved on. Walsh came in. He did a great job. They made a great album, and then they broke up.
Pretty Maids All in a Row, of course, Joe Walsh, Joe Vitale wrote that song. Beautiful song, but he never really heard it, never really experienced it, Bernie Leadon, till he came back with the History of the Eagles tour. So tonight we're celebrating an album that was released December 8th, 1976. A lot of folks get it mixed up as a 1977 album. Well, indeed it was. Its heyday was in 1977 when it was competing with Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. So keep in mind, we're going to have Randy Meisner, more Bernie Leadon, Jack Tempchin, Alan Frey, Glenn's brother, and 10 Facts About Hotel California. But we're going to get through the clips because I love these clips. They're hard-fought clips. Getting interviews with the Eagles is not an easy thing. So where are we at? Oh, I like this is. Hold on. Just give me 3 seconds. Bernie Leadon again. What it was like to perform with the Eagles when he came back.
A lot of fans were really happy to see you.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I really do believe that, everybody has their own magic, is the way my girlfriend puts it. But there was a piece of the combination of people that was the original 4-piece band, and the sound that was created between the four of us, vocally and instrumentally. We each had our part of that. And when I left, that changed. I mean, the songs were still played and some of the parts were played, but they weren't played the way that I played them. And it didn't have exactly the same vibe. So when I came back and if I play with them, it sounds like the vibe of the early days because it was my vibe that was the way I played that stuff, So, and they have Stuart Smith playing my parts when I'm not there, but he also doubled some of my parts even on the History Of tour. But he had to relearn them a little to play them like I play them because I wasn't going to play them like he played them. I went, well, no, I invented the part. I'll just play it the way I play it, Mm-hmm. And so it was fun to put my piece back with their piece, and the show started out with just Don and Glenn singing acoustic, and then I came in, I guess, sang Trinity Service. This morning it was just the three of us, so it was just me, Henley, and Fry harmonizing, and it was acoustic and no loud band, and that was very much kind of the sound from the beginning. So we did a few songs that way. Then Schmidt came out, we did Peaceful Easy Feel, and then Walsh came out, we did Witchy Woman, but then we struck the stage and then came out as 10-piece, Five Eagles and 5 backing musicians with B3, piano, another percussionist, and, the sound, when you add instruments, it starts taking up room in the mix, So It starts, inevitably, new frequencies that are loud cancel out other frequencies. So, I mean, I honestly, myself, preferred the original 4-piece group over the 5-piece group with Felder, not so much to do with any criticism of Felder per se, but just the fact that another player takes up extra room and everybody has to economize or it sounds not good.
Bernie Leadon, who left the Eagles after one of these nights. Joe Walsh came in and he was the second guitarist in Hotel California, which was released December 8th, 1976, would have its real heyday in 77, as I mentioned, when it was competing with Rumors from Fleetwood Mac. Coming up, we'll have more from Bernie Leadon. Randy Meisner's coming up, talking about that era when he was with the Eagles. Jack Tempchin, about his camaraderie, his connection with Glenn Frey, because they wrote together, and Alan Frey. We'll have more from him, who's Glenn's brother. I want to read some of your notes. JD says, can you play lead guitar, John? No, I'm a drummer. JD, then can you imitate the songs or songs on Hotel? I'm not, I don't understand your question. Reiki, all my friends got mad at me when when I saw the Hell Freezes Over tour, 3 shows at Irvine Meadows, the last resort, y'all. Reiki says, Pretty Maids All in a Row. I can't tell you why, Mr. Schmidt. Manser, the drinker you get, the player you are. Joe Walsh also always had these, these crazy playing with words titles, and always been a real fan of his. So let's get to some more clips, because this is what it's about. And at the end, we're going to play you 10 facts that you didn't know about Hotel California, because it's the anniversary. It's the anniversary today, December 8th, 1976. Where are we at? Oh, Eagles. Bernie Leadon talks about making amends with Glenn Frey, because they had both Randy Meisner and Bernie Leadon had what would be called the rock and roll fisticuffs with Glenn Frey. Take a listen.
Oh, yeah, it's a great tune. Did that take hoaxing? Who called you up? How did that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, I kind of talked about it when we did the documentary. So I didn't, I had poured the beer on Glenn's head, at a band meeting in 1975, and then agreed to leave. I said I'm going to leave the band, and it was about 4 months till the end of the year. And I said, let's do good shows and do it to prove how good we can do them, and then I'll be gone. And then, so I didn't realize that the pouring the beer on his head though was going to be this giant thing, in social media essentially too. So, but one time after Wikipedia became established, and I looked at my own entry in Wikipedia, it basically said, Bernie Leadon left the band because he poured a beer on Glenn Frey's head, which I thought, well, that's kind of a funky legacy on Wikipedia. It's like they don't talk about my guitar playing; they just talk about me pouring a beer on Glenn's head. So then I became a recovering alcoholic, and when you do recovery work, one of the things you do is you realize who you harmed, and then you become willing to make amends to them. So I realized I had to make an amends to Glenn. I tried to get a hold of him to talk to him, and he didn't want to respond. So you write him a certified letter. So I did that, return receipt, so I knew he got it. Sent it to his office, sent it certified, and I didn't hear anything back for like 5-6 years. And then the request came to do the documentary that preceded the History of tour. And it was on Showtime in the U.S., and it was sold on DVD. So in the documentary, I basically, because I was asked the question, what about pouring the beer on Glenn's head? And I said, well, I made an amends to him. I sent him a letter, and and I regretted, and so forth. And I said it wasn't a cool thing to do, and I regret it, and I've apologized to him. So shortly after that footage was seen by them in pre-production for the documentary, I got a call from the manager, Irving, saying, hey, we're thinking about doing a History of tour and wonder if you'd be interested. And if you are, Glenn would like to talk to you. And I said, yeah, I would be interested. I don't know what the parameters are, but let's talk about it. So then Glenn called me. And in the course of that conversation, he said, I got your letter and appreciated it. And the fact that he was calling me was, evidence that he felt better about things. So, but the fact that I cleared that up with him and apologized was the reason that it became possible for them to consider having me. And ironically, they wouldn't work with Felder because he'd sued them and so forth, so they weren't going to work with him. And Meisner wasn't really physically up to it. So I became the only one that was available to come back to from the past.
Bernie Leadon, the original guitarist, banjo player, man could he play, of the Eagles as we celebrate Hotel California. But he wasn't there, but I got an interview with him, and you got to include Bernie Leadon. And in the beginning, in case you missed it, you can rewatch the video where I asked Bernie, what would Hotel California have sounded like if you were still in the band? Which, he kind of thought that was a kind of a cute question. But we've got Randy Meisner coming up, more Bernie Leadon. I do believe we got one more clip. Jack Tempchin, who was Glenn Frey's songwriting partner, and Alan Frey, who's Glenn Frey's brother, talks about the early days of the Eagles, and he already talked about Hotel California. I'm going to read some of your comments. Manster1, thanks for coming on. I read that one already. Mark Burchett. Hey, Mark, nice to have you on here, man. Hi, John and everyone. Bob Perry. My all-time favorite album. I was lucky to be able to interview Glenn, Joe, and Don. Love those guys. Just saw them 3 times this year. Wow. December 8th, 1976. A lot of people got Hotel California for Christmas. I did not. I got it the following year. I got it in 77. But all my friends were going nuts. I didn't have the money, I remember, to basically get it. I'd had all their albums before. As I told Alan Frey, I said, I didn't think they could top One of These Nights. I just simply love that album, and they seem to have done it, even though I go back and forth between both albums. And at the end of this video, we're going to play 10 facts that you don't know about Hotel California as we celebrate the album tonight. It's kind of fun. I was looking forward to this. I was doing my John Lennon thing, and I went, John Lennon, wait a minute. Same day as Hotel California. Different year, but... So let's play another clip. Where are we now? Jack Tempchin. We're going to talk about... Jack Tempchin, of course, co-wrote some Eagles songs and co-wrote a lot of Glenn Frey songs. We talk about their partnership.
Why do you think it worked with you two so well? Was it different pieces of the puzzle that seemed to work? Was it the friendship? Was it like all the above and more?
It was all of that. It was the friendship and all that. And I think I had a certain freedom with making things up and a facility, for writing songs just as much or more than I did. But Glenn also had a huge variety of other skills, all of which he was a master. He knew all kinds of music, every kind of American music, from bluegrass to Philadelphia soul to everything. He knew all of it. And as a musician, you could ask him any song and he could hum you the bass part. He knew all about harmony. He was a great lead guitar player. And then most of all, he was like a team captain. He knew how to choose a team of people and motivate them and get the best out of them. And then he had a vision of doing the greatest work with no compromise. You get the very best songs, the very best singers, the very best people. So he had a whole suitcase full of incredible skills that I didn't have. So, but I was just a little part of the puzzle that helped with one part of what he did, which was the writing of the songs. And then we loved it. We got the Miami Vice sent us a script for one of the shows, and I'm playing some minor chords, and he says, you belong to the city. And I went, yeah, you belong to the city. We got really excited. I mean, we just had an incredible time loving the writing and what we were doing.
Jack is an amazing writer, but also a great interview, as you can hear. So we're doing peripheral stuff on this where we're, I think, getting to know Glenn Frey a little bit, because he seems to be the major topic in all of this, since we've got Jack Tempchin, his songwriting partner, Alan Frey, who's his brother. It's amazing. Alan told me that their mother used to phone radio stations so that stations would play the Eagles. Like they really did. She thought they really did need help in the beginning. And more Bernie Leadon, Randy Meisner, and this is I'm enjoying this. This is fun. Hi, Melody R, Saskatchewan, Canada. Joni Preston, I'm in Ontario, Canada, eh? Manster, Philly. Joni Johnson, hi, John, and greetings to all. Just curious where people are listening from. Oh, thank you for asking. Thank you. And if anybody has memories of seeing the Eagles, or if you want to join in, please do. This is what the live feeds are all about. Really enjoy talking about the Eagles. We're going to start doing more things on the Eagles. And the 10 things, we've also got a thing on the debut album coming up where we're going to have a lot of these guests back and hopefully some new interviews. So let's get back at it. Now, this is our first clip of Randy Meisner. Randy, I talked to him quite a few years ago. He doesn't do interviews anymore. It's just very rare. He talked to, I think, Joe Walsh a little while ago. But his voice is very, very soft now, and he really can't sing anymore like he used to be able to. Richie Fiore told me he's just not the same man, but he's still alive. We still got him, right? He had a heavy drinking problem for a lot of years, for quite a few years. But here, it's a very short clip where Randy Meisner talks about finally getting an award for the greatest hits.
I mean, look at the Eagles' greatest hits.
I know, and I got that reward finally.
What do you mean you got the reward?
Well, the album thing.
Oh, is that right? Like
when they presented it, they didn't, like Bernie Leadon and I didn't get like we weren't even notified, but we had to call and we finally got our deal.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was kind of because when I quit, it was like, Timothy Schmidt joined the group, and then it was like, Timothy's the guy, and I can't blame them for that. All that stuff of all the arguing between the Eagles is over now.
Well, it was then. There's still animosity between Don Felder and Don Henley. That's bigger than me. I don't know anything about that. I mean, when I talk to ex-band members, and you guys have followed my other channel, the big channel, Rock History Music, we have 106,000 subscribers, and we ask ex-band members about their old cohorts, and sometimes it's not very pretty. I don't mean to have drama on my channel, but you're going to ask a question, they're going to answer it, and if anybody wants to say something about it, they can. So there you go. And Don Henley's wife follows our channel. So there you go. Randy Meisner, Bernie Leadon, Jack Temchin, Glenn Frey, songwriting partner, Alan Frey, who's Glenn's brother. I know Bernie Leadon wasn't on Hotel California. I know. But it was fun to talk to him about getting back together with them. And December 8th, 1976 is the date when Hotel California was released. At the end of this video, you'll hear 10 facts about Hotel California you might not know. Let me see. Joni Johnson, I love the Eagles, and I thank my older brother for getting me into some great rock in the 70s. Wasn't that great when we were growing up? We'd have older siblings who were a few steps ahead, usually in sophistication in music, not always. My family was not like that. And I'm not just saying that as like a braggy thing, but my two older siblings were just fair weather music fans for the most part. Teddy Bates, NYC loves Rock History Book. Thank you. Like the video, please. Joni Johnson, this is so cool to hear this live. Thank you. Well, they're not live. It's taped interviews. But let's go back into it. We've got, we're not even halfway through our interview. Yeah, we're about halfway. Jack Temchin, what Glenn Frey taught him. Enjoy.
I'd heard you say that Glenn Frey taught you a lot about songwriting, but this wouldn't have worked unless if it was that one way. What do you think you taught him?
The first 10 years, we were just friends. He recorded Peaceful Easy Feeling and Already Gone, but we never had written a song together. We were just great friends. And then when the Eagles took a vacation, he called me and said, hey, let's write some songs. And so I don't think he was into the Alberto part so much. He worked really hard on these songs with Don Henley. And of course, they're proven to be absolute masterpieces. But when he wrote with me, he just wanted to have more fun and just let things flow. So I think that's probably some of what I brought to the table. But it's so amazing that this guy who was just a great friend of mine, you have a really good buddy, and then he turns out to be one of the greatest songwriters we've ever had. What are the chances of that? And then I get to work with him for 14 years, writing together. So we taught each other, but he taught me so much. He would come and sit down with a yellow pad and say, I'm going to do an album, and he would list a bunch of possible song titles. And yeah, he had a million techniques for everything that he developed as he went along to get things done. And it was just absolutely brilliant.
Sorry, how many songs do you have in the vaults that you didn't record with Glenn?
There must be 5 or 10 more. I mean, some of them are just a lot of lyrics on a piece of paper, and we never made a demo. And then there's some like this One More Time with Feeling that we made a demo. Some of the lines weren't finished, so I went ahead and finished them, Yeah, so there's not really a lot, but there are some. And I just figured, if I don't do these songs, no one's going to hear them. So, and then some of them I just, like the One More Time with Feeling, you just listen to it, and you just hear Glenn Frey in every line. You just hear his writing. It's just a thrill to be able to have those and do them.
Jack Temchin, who's Glenn Frey's songwriting partner for 14 years, they did some good work together. But getting back to Hotel California, do you remember where you were when you first heard the song? We have more clips coming up from Randy Meisner, Bernie Leadon. I think we have one more from Jack, Alan Frey, Glenn's brother. And then 10 facts you didn't know about Hotel California at the end. But I remember hearing Hotel California for the first time. I remember where I was. I remember turning around. I say this a lot on my channel, but I always usually have my stereo in the back, and I'd be working on my journal or a book I was writing at the time in high school, and I would just transfixed. Same, we all have these feelings. Bohemian Rhapsody, people have memories. Sultans of Swing, the first time you heard it. Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas. Everyone has those kind of moments. I had that for Baby Come Back by Player. Just simply loved it. There are hundreds of moments that we all have like that. David Smith says he's from Detroit. How's it going? Thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate everyone coming on. We've got, what do we got? More clips. Where are we at? Okay, this is Randy Meisner talking about leaving the band, coming out of one of these nights into Hotel California, and a regret he might have had. A very similar regret to Bernie Leadon. Take a listen.
I think when one of these nights came out, because we were doing a lot of gigs, like Jethro Tull, we were Joe Cocker opening up for these guys. But all of a sudden, I think it was around one of these nights, and I looked at Irving Azoff and I said, "Boy, this is big time now." I could tell it was working, and it just all of a sudden, bam, we got hit with all this stuff. I mean, it was happening.
It must have been crazy around Hotel California because there was such a buzz around that album. Everyone went nuts over it.
Oh, it was. It was just, that's when I left. I did the tour for Hotel California.
Did they know you were going to leave?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, Glenn and I got into a little, fight there. But, it's something that, it just happened. It just, something happened and we kind of got mad at each other and we took a swing at each other in Knoxville, Tennessee. I thought at the time, it's just like, guys fighting. But then it got really bad and I just decided at that point, that's when I decided, I thought, I better leave because it was getting too, I just didn't like what I was doing anymore.
Yeah. Any regrets leaving the band?
Not really. I wish I could have left in a different way though.
Yeah.
But how are you going to be nice when you leave?
Well, it's interesting you should say it that way because, most of us say that about relationships, right? Or like a love relationship. We leave them, and it's like a marriage, right?
Exactly.
And you go back and you go, well, I wish I could have did things a little bit better, but, that's life. That's the way it goes, right?
Yeah, that's the deal. It's like you do it, and then you got to stand with what you did. Probably the worst part of this whole deal is like these books that were put out.
Well, I read a bit of To the Limit.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
And it's like at the time they caught us at a wrong time, I thought. And that's when everybody was kind of angry at each other. So you say things that you really don't mean, because, you spill all the dirt. And that's what these people wanted. And you fall into it. And then years later, like now, it's like, why the hell did I say that? Or why did Henley say that? Or why did Glenn? Or, anybody. It's like, goddamn it, we're just people. And we had, there was a time when there was a little resentment and all that stuff. But, it's when you get older, it's like, why even think about it anymore? It's not worth it. Okay, now, enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now is enough is enough.
I hear you.
Because I don't hold any hatred or anything. It's just like, those were the times, that's what happened. And now just, let's get on with life and have some fun,
Randy Meisner. Now, that is the clip of clips for Randy Meisner as far as him getting into a fight, like he says, with Glenn Frey. They were young men. People sometimes forget. And, I know Dirt, if I have a positive video, it'll get 3,000 hits maybe. If I have like a salacious, crazy video, it'll get 100,000 hits. But that's human nature. That's just the way it goes. Get some comments. Joni Johnson says, sorry, what year was it? Hotel California was December 8th. It's the anniversary today. December 8th, 1976. The year of the interview was 2000? I forget. Around 2000, 2002. He doesn't do interviews anymore for the most part. It's very rare. And I have I think the longest interview with him on the internet. Melody R. I first heard Hotel California on CHAB, Moose Job. Lisa Parker. Hello, I'm from Chicago. I just love your show so very much. Lisa, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. Joni Johnson. And it's funny how you don't know the people, but when they pass away, it's sad. Like, oh yeah, Christine McVie. Yeah. Well, we never really know them. I interviewed a lady last night. Some Canadians might know Lisa Hart from the Lisa Hart Band. I talked to her, and after I finished the interview, I remember going, I feel like I know her now. But it's rare. I've interviewed people 8 times, and you don't really, they want to promote something, and I want the interview because I do YouTube videos, and I'm a broadcaster. So there you go. Let's do some more. I'll just let you know what we've got coming up. 10 things you didn't know about Hotel California. Coming up, we've got Randy Meisner, Bernie Leadon, and Alan Frey. That's what we've got left. So let's listen to, this is a good one. Randy Meisner's mental state when he left the Eagles. He's very transparent.
I was pretty messed up because I was kind of going through a divorce, and I thought, well, the reason I left, I wanted to do my own thing, and so I did. And then I realized how much I wanted to be in a group, because then it was like all upon me. Like every interview, every decision, everything had to be made by me. And then all of a sudden, I realized, like, God, I don't want to do this no more. And it's like Henley right now. He's gone out on his own, and I bet he's working really hard. I know he's in, like Jay Leno. He's doing like a lot of gigs and stuff just to promote the album, and that's the hardest part. Really, that's not me. It's a group of good people, and have a good time.
He mentioned on his A&E special, the live thing, that he says, when I don't know how we get from one of these things from start to finish, like recording an album, that it takes so much time, the project.
Oh, and especially Hanley, he's such a stickler.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you listen to his music,
Yeah. Well, one of the things I remember, God, in the 80s, I talked to someone who was close to him, and it wasn't a bad thing. He just said he's a perfectionist. That's just the way he is. I mean,
and that's the way I am, too.
Is that right?
Yeah, I want perfection, but, sometimes you just can't get it.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the perfection is, I think, either Donald Fagen or Walter Becker said once, and they're famous for being extra perfectionists on their albums, they say you end up overproducing, and they've been accused of that, and they understand that, but they say you go full circle, then you go full circle again, and all of a sudden the album's produced 5 times, and you kind of lose your footing, and you got to be careful of that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's something to be said for that, because you can be over perfection.
Yeah.
And then you lose, like, what is the real feel. But, Hanley always does a pretty damn good job, I got to say. He's always good.
Well, that's the first time I had a clip, and I didn't realize it ended, but it ended. I want to read some of your comments. We've still got, I'll let you know what we've still got. We've still got Bernie Leadon, and then Glenn Frey's brother, Alan. It's some interesting clips from him. Meisner says, I was 15. When it was released, I was 16, almost 17 years old, a few months from 17. Joni Johnson, but back then the music was so cool. It really was. People talked about music to each other, I think, a lot more than they do now. I'm not one of those new music sucks kind of guy. I enjoy finding new music, but it was different then. Melody R says, I was 14. Joni Johnson, and yes, I wanted to say that I love your show. Thank you very much. So 10 facts about, I got to stop pointing at the camera. It's not polite. 10 facts about the Eagles' Hotel California coming up that you didn't know. Maybe some of you diehards knew some of this stuff. Here's Bernie Leadon. The Eagles' vocal stack, praise for Henley and Meisner. Take a listen.
First of all, we had fun with the group because when we sang well, because, and the reason why the Eagles, one of the main reasons that we had a good blend, other than the fact that Henley was a great singer and Meisner was a great singer, and I'd say Glenn Frey and I were like kind of pretty good singers, but those two guys, I think Meisner and Henley, were superior voices, but everybody was in their own range. So Meisner was a true first tenor, I was a true baritone. Henley could sing pretty high. We could all sing pretty high at that point, but when we sang in the stack, we were all in our own range, so everybody's comfortable and nobody sounds strained. Everybody's in full voice, and that's part of why it sounds so good.
When we sang in the stack, isn't that the coolest thing? Oh, I got to get another interview with Bernie Leadon. I so enjoyed talking to him. And you know what he said at the end of the interview? He said, well, I've got to go now anyway. He says, I enjoyed the interview. He said, notice the difference between the interview with Bernie Leadon and my interview with Randy Meisner, which was quite a few years ago. Randy Meisner, I'm interrupting him. I'm talking way too much, which is something I don't do anymore. But you learn the hard way. I should have known better back then because I'd been in radio for quite a few years at that point. But slow learner maybe, right? I want to read some of your comments before we have Alan Frey talking about his relationship with his brother, Glenn Frey. And then 10 things you didn't know about Hotel California. Thank you for hanging out with me because I'm enjoying this an awful lot. I want to do more of these album features. Joni Johnson, oh, thank you. You like my show. Thank you. Lisa Parker, it's so very sad losing Christine McVie. It really was. And it was a complete shock because I don't think a lot of people knew she was sick. And remember, December 8th, 1976, Hotel California is released, and then it competes with Rumors in 77. They were the two biggest bands, right, for most North Americans. Mansour 1, thanks. This is great. We're almost at the big feature. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on with me. I really do appreciate it. I asked Glenn Frey's brother about his relationship with Glenn.
Yeah, we were pretty close. Let's see, during the early years of the album, the Eagles, the first 3.5 albums anyway, leading up to one of these nights, we stayed in pretty good close touch. And then due to fame and fortune, larger contract, let's see, Hotel California came out. I think a little bit of the secrecy behind the Eagles had to do with the contractual agreements they had. They didn't say too much to the media or to the families involved about their ongoings or whereabouts, their living arrangements, their phone numbers. I think it had to do with them getting a lot bigger. But early on, we were in close touch. Glenn always involved me, brought me up to Aspen. He brought me to Schaefer Stadium where the New England Patriots play in Foxborough. We traveled all around back when you could stand on the side of the stage before insurance matters got involved. Went to a lot of that stuff early on, their first couple of albums when they were still being a backup band with anybody from Jethro Tull to the Yes to Procol Harum. Got to do a lot of that stuff, and then they got a little bit bigger and everything got a little bit tighter where they weren't flying people in to see their shows and things like that because there was just too much going on. It got pretty large pretty quick. So the communication was down. I got to see Glenn at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and if they come on the road, I get to see a few shows. But there was nothing personal going on. He was going through a marriage and setting up his own lifestyle and living arrangements with his wife. And so, there wasn't that much communication. I got a lot of it through my mom because Glenn could stay in touch with my mom pretty regularly. So I asked my mom, what's Glenn doing, Yeah, it wasn't like I called him every day and said, hey, I want to buy a van. It's $1,500. It's an E150. What do you think about it? Or have you heard this new song by whoever? It wasn't that type of a daily talking or a daily call. And I figured he had a big corporation to run besides family life and other things, movies and television interviews and things like that. And, I didn't want to be bothersome or pry on his time. Glenn told me one time, it's not money, it's time. And, that I think that holds true.
Isn't that interesting? So he had an on and off relationship with his brother. And it was Alan who reached out to me because I'd written something or did something on the internet where he said, thanks for being fair. Talking about the individual songs, Shannon, my wife, Wasted Time has always been her favorite on this. And maybe that's more of a lady thing, not that I want to stereotype, but Hotel California on this album was, it was always my favorite. I love Victim of Love, Try to Love Again, Randy Meisner again. Randy, I loved Randy's voice. And Bernie Leadon pointed out that Randy had such a great voice. Lisa Parker, start doing this every day. Actually, we do it every day. We have been doing a Today in History almost every day, but we don't do it in the way that, and this person was born and that person was born, because we found the videos weren't doing that well. And maybe it's because other people are doing that sort of thing online and they already have their niche. I'd like to continue doing a complete Today in History with lots of pictures, but we kind of stopped doing it. We cherry pick now the interesting things, like earlier on today we did the death of John Lennon. So we do it every day on this channel. We just don't do it on the other channel. The other channel is new interviews. That's basically what it is. This one is things that happen on this day and stuff like that. Joni Johnson, you did a lot better than I would have done. I would have been speechless if I met Burton Cummings years ago. I got a picture. When he put his arm around me, I went to mush. I'm still trying to get an interview with Burton Cummings. We got Randy Bachman, but Burton's, they're not getting back to us, so we'll see what we can do. Okay, are you ready for this? This is our 10 facts you didn't know about Hotel California. Some of you guys will know some of these facts, but let's celebrate one of the greatest albums of all time. Like I said, I was 16 years old, almost 17 when it came out. Enjoy, and after this, I'll be back on in a sec. Number 1, the title track was supposed to be called Mexican Reggae. The origin of the song began when guitarist Don Felder rented a beach house in Malibu. The inspiration came to him when he was sitting on the couch one day and strumming his 12-string acoustic guitar. After playing some chords, he immediately reached for his 4-track tape recorder and captured it, then even adding some bass and a drum machine overdub for emphasis. When the Eagles reconvened in the spring of 1976 to work on their 5th album, Felder let his band members listen to all his recordings. The reggae-like song was one they decided to work on. The demo Felder had made for Hotel California showed a lot of influence from Latin and reggae, and it grabbed the attention of lead vocalist drummer Don Henley. He said he liked the song, thought it sounded Mexican reggae or bolero. It's at that point they gave it the working title Mexican Reggae. Number 2. When it came time to record Hotel California, Don Felder forgot what he had written. At that point, it'd been more than a year since Don Felder had recorded that initial demo tape. And when the Eagles went into Criteria Studios in Miami, Felder couldn't remember what he had written. When he and Joe Walsh began to work on that extended guitar fade, Don Henley thought there was something missing. Joe and I started jamming, Don said. No, stop. It's not right, Felder told the Music Radar in 2012. I said, what do you mean it's not right? And he said, no, you've got to play it just like the demo. Only problem was, I did the demo earlier. I couldn't even remember what was on it. The demo tape was on the other end of the country in Los Angeles. So we had to call the housekeeper in Malibu, who took the cassette, put it on the blaster, and played it over the phone, Felder remembers. And from there, they continued working on the song, with satisfactory results. It was close enough to the demo to make Don happy, he said. Number 3, a lyric from the title track Hotel California made a reference to the band Steely Dan. Steely Dan's 1976 project, The Royal Scam, included the song Everything You Did, which made a reference to the Eagles. According to Glenn Frey's liner notes, for the very best of, the use of the word steely in the lyric, they stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast, was a playful nod to Steely Dan, who had included the lyric, turn up the Eagles, the neighbors are listening, in their song, Everything You Did. Frey had also said that the writing of the song was inspired by the boldness of Steely Dan's lyrics and its willingness to go out there, and thought that the song they wrote had achieved perfect ambiguity. Apparently, Walter Becker's girlfriend loves the Eagles, and she played them all the time. I think it drove him nuts, Frey said. So the story goes that they were having a fight one day, and that was the genesis of the line. Given that the two bands shared a manager with Irving Azoff, and that the Eagles proclaimed their admiration for Steely Dan, this was more friendly rivalry than feud. Jethro Tull's Ian Anderson thought that Hotel California sounded like one of his own songs. After hearing Hotel California for the first time, Jethro Tull's multi-instrumentalist Ian Anderson thought the song sounded very familiar and believed that it sounded like one of his own compositions, We Used to Know, from Jethro Tull's 1969 album, Stand Up. Another coincidence was that the Eagles and Jethro Tull had toured together in 1972. In an interview with Songfacts, Anderson said maybe it was something that they kind of picked up subconsciously and introduced that chord sequence into their famous song Hotel California sometime later. The problem with that was Don Felder, one of the composers of the song, didn't officially join the Eagles until 1974, so he wasn't on that tour in 72. And Felder himself later denied having ever heard the song We Used to Know. In a 2016 interview, Anderson stated that the chord progression had likely been used in earlier songs, and called Hotel California a much better song than his We Used to Know. Don Felder was originally supposed to be the lead vocalist for the song Victim of Love. Felder was an important contributor to Hotel California, the album. Besides the title track, he also co-wrote the song Victim of Love with Henley and lead vocalist guitarist Glenn Frey, as well as singer-songwriter and musician J.D. Souther. We were trying to head to a heavier direction, away from country rock. So I wrote 16 or 17 song ideas, kind of more in a rock and roll direction, and Victim of Love was one of those songs, Felder told Songfacts. I remember we went into the studio and recorded it live with 5 guys playing. The only thing that wasn't played live was the lead vocal and harmony, and the choruses. Felder initially provided the lead vocals on the songs, but his bandmates didn't like the results. Don Felder, for all his talents as a guitar player, was not really a main singer in the Eagles. Frey said in the history of the Eagles TV special. In fact, his only lead vocals was on one of these nights with the song Visions. So when Felder's vocals didn't measure up to the band's standards, they broke the news to him that Don Henley was going to be the singer. The Eagles' success allowed them to encourage in and enjoy all the perks of being a rock star, with the illicit stuff being a large part of that. One of the standout tracks on Hotel California was inspired by Glenn Frey's harrowing car ride one night with a drug dealer. He says, "I was riding shotgun in a Corvette on a way to a poker game," he recalls in the 2013 documentary The History of the Eagles. "The next thing I know, we're doing 90, holding big time. I say, 'Hey man,' he grins and goes, 'Life in the Fast Lane.' I thought, now there's a song title." Holding on to that idea for months, Frey heard Joe Walsh playing a hard-hitting riff during a band rehearsal one day, and it stopped him in his tracks. He asked Walsh to play it again, and from there the song began to take root. When the final track was completed, Frey realized how his experience with the drug dealer had made him so uncomfortable. "I could hardly listen to Life in the Fast Lane when we were recording it because I was getting high a lot of the time and the song made me ill," he told Rolling Stone in 1979. "We were trying to paint a picture that cocaine wasn't that great. It turns on you. It messed up my back muscles. It messed up my nerves. It messed up my stomach and made me paranoid." Number 7. While recording the album at Criteria Studios in Miami, Black Sabbath were recording their album Technical Ecstasy in an adjacent studio, causing a lot of noise that was disrupted to the Eagles. The Eagles' 5th album was overseen by veteran producer Bill Szymczyk, who had worked with the band on their previous album, One of These Nights. Szymczyk, however, had one condition: that they record at Miami's legendary Criteria Studios, instead of the band's standard base at LA's record plant. Szymczyk, who was paranoid about earthquakes and insisted on recording away from LA, made a compromise with the band to split time between both favored studios. During the sessions, the band was forced to stop recording on numerous occasions because of the studio next door, blaring out heavy metal music from Black Sabbath, who were so loud that the sound was coming through the walls. "The Eagles were recording next door, but we were too loud for them," Black Sabbath lead guitarist Tony Iommi told Uncut in 2014. "It kept coming through the walls into their sessions. So much so that the album's classic delicate ballad, The Last Resort, had to be recorded multiple times due to the noise of Black Sabbath." Number 8. Don Henley brought his own mattress to each hotel during the Hotel California tour. The grueling business of touring can take a toll on a rock and roller, so it's no surprise that some may take extreme measures to find some sense of comfort while on the road. Joe Barry, the Eagles' head electrician, recalls Don Henley's special request for the Hotel California tour. He insisted on having a king-size bed and mattress available at all times, which the crew had to drag around everywhere, he told Mark Elliott in To the Limit, the untold story of the Eagles. The tour seamstress made a special cover for it, with handles to make it easier to pack. It was Don's bed. It went everywhere. Henley defended this necessity for his personal comfort due to excruciating back pain exacerbated by a nightly performance. "I used to have to hold my body in such a position that my spine got out of alignment," he explained to Modern Drummer. "Between playing drums and keeping my mouth in front of the microphone, it really twisted my whole body. I got to a point in the 70s where I literally could not sleep." Unfortunately, the hotels were less sympathetic to Henley's bad back, as none of them would allow the mattress he brought into the hotels. So it was never used. Number 9. To shoot the album cover for Hotel California, the Eagles enlisted the services of British art director Kosh, aka John Kosh, a man responsible for the Beatles' Abbey Road album cover and the Who's Next, Rolling Stones' Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, and many others. Kosh listened to a rough version of the album's title track and recalled this in a 2007 interview with Rock and Roll Report. "Don wanted me to portray the Hotel California and portray it with a slightly sinister edge." While scouting different locations with photographer David Alexander, Kosh assembled a short list of suitable venues, then quickly narrowed it down to his favorite, the Beverly Hills Hotel on Sunset Boulevard. His goal was to later erase all traces of the bright and beautiful qualities of the hotel, which proved to be a technical challenge. To get the picture perfect, David and I had to perch nervously atop a 60-foot cherry picker, dangling over Sunset Boulevard in rush hour, shooting blindly into the sun, Kosh said. Both of us brought Nikons up into the basket, and we took turns shooting, ducking, and reloading. We used high-speed film as the light began to fade, and the film gave us remarkable graininess for the final shoot. The chosen shot, captured at the remarkable golden hour just before sunset, thus would become one of the most recognizable album covers in rock and roll history. At first, the hotel in the picture was not easily recognized as the famous Beverly Hills Hotel. But when word finally did spread of the building's identity, the hotel representatives were not too pleased and threatened to sue, threatening a cease and desist action, which later were dropped. As sales of the Hotel California went through the roof, it was gently pointed out that this was great free publicity. Number 10, the Eagles didn't attend the Grammy Awards and instead watched their win from a band rehearsal. At the Grammy Awards in February 1978, the Eagles received several nominations, including the prestigious Record of the Year for Hotel California. But Eagles manager Irving Azoff didn't want any part of it and was unwilling to subject the band to any kind of PR humiliation, as their image had taken a beating in the music press despite the album's incredible sales. Azoff suggested hiding the band in a secret dressing room, where they would emerge only if they were to win the award and their name was called. The scheme, of course, was rejected. The Eagles ultimately won the award, but with nobody there to accept it for them. Azoff quickly released a statement saying that the band was in Miami working on their new album, ending the statement with a dismissive, "That's the future, this is the past." The band then watched their win from the studio during their rehearsal. But if they were disappointed that they couldn't accept the award in person, they certainly didn't show it. As Henley told the Los Angeles Times, the whole idea of a contest to see who is best just doesn't appeal to us. There you go. 10 things you didn't know about Hotel California. Jason Close, who is one of our writers, put all of that together, and he just recently did another piece for us for the debut album for the Eagles. So we will release that on the appropriate date and have a lot more interviews. A lot of our interviews are really good for the early part of the Eagles, because I've never talked to Timothy B. Schmidt. And I was just looking at my monitor. You know, sometimes you pause your TV, because we can all pause our TVs now. And then the person on the screen looks kind of evil or sleeping or whatever. It's usually sleeping. My monitor just froze on me, and I looked like this. It was kind of weird. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this. I am a huge Eagles fan. My favorite album, I still go back. I mean, Randy Meisner sent me a really nice autographed one of these nights. He asked me, which album would you... He enjoyed the interview. He said, I'd love to send you something. Can I send you an autographed album? I'll show you something else. Just stay there. He also sent me a picture. I just found it the other day. He sent me this picture. And an autographed one of these nights. And there's Randy. To John, take it to the limit at QMFM, which is the station I still work for. But isn't that nice? Really enjoyed that. Jack Tempchin sent me his album. I've got an autographed Hotel California, a Glenn Frey autographed Hotel California album. I've got a Greatest Hits album autographed by Don Henley and Glenn Frey. These are treasured things in my life that they mean an awful lot to me. So thank you for joining me. If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description. You can make a PayPal donation, which helps pay for our writers, because the more writers we have, the more content, like what you just saw. I mean, I'm talking a little fast, and it was really my radio guy persona, but we had to make it short. I had to talk fast. So you can make a PayPal donation, or else you can join our Patreon, where you can have early access to a lot of our videos. Like our videos, it means an awful lot to us if you do. These big productions take a long time, but they're fun. You know, it was nice to have everyone on here tonight. And like them, subscribe to our channel. We do a Today in History thing every single day. We don't go out of our way to say it's Today in History, because it's not evergreen product once you say that. There's something about people just, they look at it and they'll go, wait a minute, this is old. So we usually halfway through, we'll say the date. It was released on December 8th, 1976, but we tend to say it's Today in History later on, once you're hooked, or, because if you don't like it, you'll be gone by then. So there you go. UP Trippin', my late grandson's favorite album. Oh, that's nice. Sorry about your grandson. Melody R, thank you so much. Joni Johnson, wow, that picture is so cool. You're a lucky man. Yeah. You know, I wrote Jimmy Stewart before he died, and he also sent me there you go. Oh, there it is. Try to get the light out of there. I treasure this, but you know, he also, like I said, autographed one of these nights for me in his little gray pen as well. So tune in tomorrow, same time. No, we're always at a different time. That's the problem with this. I usually try to get. I'm working on 4 channels right now. There are 3 music channels, and one's an entertainment channel. I've just finished interviewing some actors, not big actors, but I'm starting with smaller actors, and this is like a 12-hour day for me, but I enjoy it. You know what I mean? When you do something you really enjoy, it's all cool. The podcast of this will be going up on our podcast channel. The links are in the description. So there you go. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care of yourself. I love you guys. Thanks for indulging me. Take care.